Welcome back to yet another episode of RNT Fitness Radio. And I just want to kick this bit off by saying a huge thank you to everybody recently that has reached out to us. So we've had DMs, we've had WhatsApps, we've had emails, all talking about, either how information packed the episode was that they've just listened to, or how it's directly applying to them at the stage of life that they're in now. So a big thing that Akash and I wanted to focus on when we set up this podcast was that it wasn't just about, reps and sets and chicken and rice and broccoli and all the boring stuff. Sure, we cover that because that is a large part of sort of transformations. But, psychology and life in general is also super interesting and is often kind of the missing link in somebody really being able to delve deep and achieve like a lifelong transformation. So that's why we've tried bringing various people in with completely different backgrounds, different perspectives on things. And it really seems to be working, judging by the feedback that we're getting. These messages that people are coming on and delivering are really resonating with you guys, which is awesome. So I just want to say thank you, and also to encourage you to keep reaching out, keep feeding back to us so that we can keep sort of tailoring the type of guests that we get on with the feedback that we get. So with that said, today's guest is Jon Goodman. Jon Goodman runs the PTDC, which is the Personal Trainer Development Center. It's probably the biggest online personal trainer development website, I guess you would call it, that I know of anyway. So it has tons and tons of articles on just making trainers better trainers, whether it's training, nutrition, business. There's lots on there. Akash has contributed and has articles on there too. So it's a great one for trainers themselves, and even if you're a client listening to this, or if you're just undergoing your own fat loss journey. The articles are written, at sort of trainer level, but it's all in English. It's all in layman's terms. It's a great site. And Jon is a really interesting guy. So, a lot of people would be very envious of his lifestyle. So he's able to work remotely. He sort of splits his time between his home, Canada, and then the other 6 months of the year he tends to travel, and we go through his upcoming travel plans in this episode. He lives with his wife and his kid, Calvin. It just seems like a super kind of grateful guy that's, he had some issues initially, went to sort of find himself, as he says, and now I'll let you judge for yourself, but he sounds like he's in a pretty good place. I'm very envious for sure. In this episode, we cover the travel that I mentioned. We cover sort of morning routines and how Jon isn't a big believer of the hocus pocus behind it and drinking the kombucha tea and so on, as he mentions. We discuss marketing. We discuss mistakes that people make with marketing, how to service your clients better. And I hope for people listening to this doesn't just apply to online trainers. Like, the message that Jon's delivering here is applicable throughout any industry. So I hope the lessons are valuable for you guys. They certainly helped Akash and I out, and it was great talking to Jon. He's also just launched the Online Trainer Academy, which I would suggest you go and check out. So if you head to theptdc.com and then just search for the Academy, you'll find all the good information there. I believe it's just about to enroll, so I would check that out as soon as possible. And I hope you enjoy. Let's take it into to who Jon Goodman is then. So give us the lowdown as to who Jon Goodman is. Talk us through the evolution of your career, what got you into the fitness industry, what got you started the PTDC, and everything else.
Everything else, yeah. I mean, I started working out like a lot of kids do when I was about 14, 15 years old. I was like 105 pounds soaking wet. I was playing hockey. I was getting beat up, like ice hockey. So I was getting beat up on the ice, and I wanted to impress girls, so I started lifting weights in the YMCA. Went to university for kinesiology, was a trainer for 3 years all through at university as well while I was studying. Graduated, became a trainer full time. And by the time I was 23 years old, I kind of reached the point that a lot of trainers reach, where I was making as much money as I could really make in the job. I had a full load of clients. I was referring an overload of clients to other trainers, getting a commission from that. I was managing a group of trainers as well, and like helping to hire them and sort of mentor them at 23 years old, which is weird. Probably shouldn't have been doing it, but earning a salary for that as well. And I remember I kept having this kind of thought in the back of my head that kept coming up, which was, is this what my life is going to be like? Like I was happy. I was making good money at 23, but I was working super long days, and there was nowhere to really grow from there, which looking back was probably the scariest thing. As a 23-year-old, obviously, who reaches any kind of level of success in whatever they're doing, I always wanted to push. That's why I was in the position that I was in at that time. And so I started looking at just other things to do, like how can I make money not on my feet? I never wanted to leave the fitness industry, but I was researching everything from residential real estate investing to I built 2 business plans for opening up a remote smoothie operation, like everything and anything. And eventually came across a book called Multiple Streams of Income by somebody named Robert G. Allen. Nothing about that book that's particularly good. It wasn't a bad book, but it was the first book that introduced me to a term called infopreneuring, which basically means selling your information. Now that seems like, yeah, of course, everybody does that. This was back in 2008. So it wasn't as common back then. Like I didn't even know what a blog was when I started my first blog. I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know how people made money on the internet. I didn't know that anybody sold information. I didn't even think that way. And so I ended up writing a book because I was too ignorant not to write a book. I knew so little about what I was doing that I wrote a book for personal trainers at 24 years old called Ignite the Fire. That book's gone on, had a lot of success, been translated to a few languages, is used all around the world. And to promote the book, started a website called the Personal Trainer Development Center, which really was a little website to start to promote the book, but it's now grown into the largest collaborative blog in the world for educating personal trainers. From that, I eventually stopped training people to basically get into publishing and writing full time. So I've now written 7 books. I've created the first ever certification for online trainers, wrote the first ever textbook on that. And I'm a writer and a publisher now, centered around the fitness industry.
So going in on the writing side of it, obviously you are a prolific writer. Do you have like a process? Do you have do you just pick up the laptop and go, or do you have like a ritual? Talk us through how
it's
you
funny,
get stuff done.
I do and I don't. Now that I have a 14-month son, every process that I ever had, every pattern that I ever had is just thrown out the window because now I'm not in control of my time the same way. I used to like really buy into this productivity guru thing of, make sure you take over the morning and make sure that you're always in control and that you own the day and all this type of stuff. And then I realized that everybody who was writing those types of books and blog posts were single white men. And I was like, there's like nothing wrong with it, but the whole idea of wake up in the morning and meditate for 15 minutes to get your mind straight, and then free write for 20 minutes in a journal, and then pick up your other journal and write in that one, and then mix your matcha green tea traditionally because it has to be done with purpose, and then begin your day with some lemon water. It's like, okay, well that's cool, and I get it, and I get that that's like how you could prime yourself for a good day theoretically. But like I wake up usually for the 4th or 5th or 6th time in the morning, and I look over at my wife and make sure that she didn't die overnight. And if I smell poo, I clean it up. And then like I make breakfast for my family. So I can't do that. So what I do, Adam, is I try to wake up before everybody else. So that's usually about 5. Everybody else kind of wakes up 6:37 or so. I set everything up the night before, which means I set my coffee to go. Even down to I have all of my notes for whatever I'm going to write beside my computer. Yep. I have my music queued up. I start with the same song for a writing session every single time. You don't hear that song in any other place ever except for the final scene of the first season of Breaking Bad. And that's so then the minute I sit down, I kind of get up, press go on the coffee. And it's very ritualistic, right? Everything kind of triggers me into that space. I have all of my notes. Everything that I was going to procrastinate with is already there, so I can't procrastinate. And I sit down and I put that song on. It cues me into it. And that's my goal to write Monday, Wednesday, Friday for a minimum of 30 minutes. That's it. If I hit more than that, great. But if I do 30 minutes 3 times a week of uninterrupted, focused writing time, I consider it a win for this week.
Okay.
And I think, that's fitness too, right? Like small, attainable goals. If you were to actually have 30 minutes of really high quality focused time every day, or even 3 times a week on something that's going to be proactive for your business, maybe it's writing, maybe it's not, that compounds over the months and the years. That's basically all that I've done. It's just that slow, progressive build. I've never really spiked or anything like that in terms of platform, audience reach. It's just been the slow build because it's just been that consistent effort moving forward all the time.
Interesting. So just a personal one. This wasn't one of our questions, but just a personal one for me. How do you go about picking topics to write about? Like, it's something that I struggle with personally.
Yes.
So Akash he's great at writing himself. I get like a block where I start overthinking it as to like, oh, this is boring. People already know this.
Yeah.
How did you do that back in the day?
Well, back in the day, it was very different than how I do it now. I mean, back in the day when I was training people, I was getting fodder all day. So all that I do is I'd keep a page on the back of my clipboard. And that page was basically ideas to write about. And every time I did anything, every time I cued a client a certain way or somebody asked me about something, there was an objection, or I picked up garbage in the gym, I just write it down, a note of what I did on the back of my clipboard on a piece of paper. And then at the end of the night, I just transfer that into a doc, and I like hundreds of stuff I wanted to write about. That's how my first book came about too, to be honest. I just did that all the time. And that was easy. Nowadays, it's funny, a lot of advice to writers is often, I think, misguided, which is write for the reader, don't write for yourself. I write very selfishly for myself. I write for my own enjoyment. And that's allowed me to be a lot more creative and free with my writing, which, I mean, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. But I tell my audience straight up with the blog that I write on, which is onlinetrainer.com, I've told my audience over and over again, I'm like, this is my home. Like, if you want to come and hang out and see what's going on, then you're welcome to. But like, I'm writing this for me. I don't have stats installed in the site. I've got Google Analytics if I ever need it, but I've never looked at it. I have no idea whether there's 2 or whether there's 50,000 people on the site. It's completely irrelevant to me. I have no idea whether one article performs better than another article. It's completely irrelevant to me. Because all that matters to me is that I write, and that I write things that I think are interesting and that I enjoy. So it's mostly storytelling, to be honest. What's an interesting story? Like, I was listening to Harry Potter with my wife. We'll play like books on tape while we're just hanging out at home. So we were listening to the first Harry Potter book, and Professor Dumbledore looks into the mirror that's supposed to, like, this, you look into the mirror and it tells you like what you want to have, right, in the first scene. And Professor Dumbledore is like the philosopher, and he asked Harry, he's like, what do you think I looked for? And I can't remember what Harry said, but he goes, no, I wanted socks. He's like, everybody always brings me books, but I don't want books. I want socks. And to me, like, I'm going to write about that because I think that that's a very interesting lesson. Like, do you actually know what people want? Or do you just think that you know what they want based off of your stereotype of them? How in depth do you know your audience? And so I try to like pick out little fun things from my everyday. And I think that's what makes somebody interesting or uninteresting. I think that there's very little that you could say that's going to be really inventive. You're not going to be able to bring up new science. You're not going to bring up like a better way to lose fat or gain muscle or anything like that. What matters is that you can deliver it in an engaging way. And so you've got to be interesting, which means you've got to read a lot, which means you've got to experience a lot in order to be interesting.
Perfect. That's quite interesting. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's a good segue to one of the topics we want to talk about was, you travel very extensively, right? How did you first develop that big love for travel?
I've always had it. It's been in my family. The first ever trip that I ever did, like the first ever adventure trip that I ever did, was actually backpacking with my oldest brother across Cuba this would have been like 2004. Like, I was 15 years old. And I remember my brother kind of looks like me in that he's got darker skin. When he's got a heavy beard, he looks like he could be Spanish, and he speaks fluent Spanish. And back then, Cuba was not open. I mean, it was fine. Like, I'm Canadian, so we could travel there, but it was not open. And if you were to go anywhere sort of outside of the tourist areas, some places you weren't allowed. Other places you had to do the tourist stuff. So like, if you were to take the tourist bus, it would be like $40 US. If you were to take the local bus, it'd be half a cent. So we tried to do all of the local stuff. And I just kept my mouth shut, and he talked, and everybody thought that we were Cuban. So that was my first, it ran in my family. My parents have always traveled. My sister and brother have always traveled a lot. And so I got that bug early on. I did a student exchange in Australia in university. So I did a semester of school in Melbourne and traveled around New Zealand around there. Ended up working in Greece that same summer for a couple months too, on an island in Greece at a hostel. Just fell in love with it. How I started doing the adult travel myself is I ran away to Hawaii. Basically, my business was going pretty well. My online business, this is like later on, was going pretty well. And but I started to just become a terrible person. I realized that I could game the system pretty well. I realized that I could get my sites to rank better. I realized that I could create a lot of spammy stuff and sell like 6-pack workouts and supplements and stuff pretty easily. And so started creating, I mean, I kid you not, a new website every single day, putting it into this whole system of sites that I developed that all interlinked, that immediately made it rank better than all of the other review type sites for this stuff at the time. And was just doing that every single day, but I hated what I was doing. I was jealous of everybody else, and I was a joke to be around because I had this big ego. And so I ran away to Hawaii by myself at the time to basically figure out my life. And I knew that I wouldn't have been able to do that any other way unless I ran away. I was spiraling downwards in Toronto. And so I spent 3 months in Oahu, basically by myself, thinking what I wanted to do, and ended up shutting down a couple businesses while I was there, figuring out what I wanted to move forward with. When I figured that out, left Oahu, moved to Maui for another 3 months and started building back up. And that was the first winter away. I've now done 6 consecutive winters away. And we're going to be away all of 2019 as well.
Where are you planning to go?
In 2019?
Yeah.
We're going to be in a town called Sayulita, Mexico for 3 months. Then we're going to be in Athens for 3 months, a town called Kotor in Montenegro for 3 months, Tel Aviv in Israel, and then it looks like Granada in southern Spain is going to be the final place. So each of these places in 3 months.
Awesome. How do you maintain your quality of work and growing the business while you're traveling so extensively?
I've been able to put together an unbelievable team is the real answer. I mean, the skill of the people that I work with, the desire to produce just beautiful world-class things. You know, I think a lot of people who work online look to hire as cheaply as they can. You know, oh, I got to find a designer. I'm going to go on Fiverr. Or what's the cheapest editor I could find? Or the most cost-effective this. It's like, nah, I find the most expensive. I find the best. And oftentimes these are people who, I mean, my editorial director, Lou, like it took me 6 years of building a relationship with him and trust with him to get him to basically take a chance on working with me. And then recognize an opportunity where the company he was basically hired on, he was the fitness editor with Men's Health for many years, left them, was doing contract work with them, but then was hired on by a startup that went under, you know, one of these things where they got millions of dollars of funding and then blew through it within like a month. And never actually put out a product, and so he was available, and it just worked out that way. But that's one. The second that I think is probably more actionable and applicable to anybody listening here is that rule of proactive work.
Yeah.
If I can, I mean, really, as stupid and as crazy as this sounds, if you can do 30 minutes of super high quality proactive work that is actually going to move your business forward every day, and you do that consistently every single day, you're going to wake up 2 years from now and you're going to be miles ahead of the competition, because most of them are wasting their time pretending that they're posting on Facebook and doing work. You know, the job, when I say proactive work, it's not necessarily writing marketing materials. It's writing operational documentation so that you can actually bring on somebody else.
Yeah.
It's thinking through the strategy of what you want to produce and how this is all going to work together. It's producing real things that are going to be in real people's hands that are going to work for you in ways that you can't measure. You know, I woke up this morning and I saw we put through our 10,000th order in our store in under 2 months. And those are all real things that we ship to people. You know, books, materials, etc. So that's 10,000 items that are around the world now working for us. What's the return on that versus a paid advertisement to a crappy ebook that nobody's going to read?
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah,
so what are you actually building? You know, that's going to work for you. Anybody who knows how to build a business knows that you've got to build assets and then build off of those assets. And money is not an asset. What you do with the money is that asset.
Interesting. Yeah, we've speaking of physical items, we've just had a big shipment of shakers come in for our business. So we're going to start delivering them to sending them off to clients.
But we actually got the idea from one of your articles.
Yeah. It was the article on I think it was an email you wrote about the tomato tin with the wrapper.
Yeah, I've got it right here.
I think it was that email, and I think I forwarded. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Success comes in cans, not cannots. For anybody listening, this is a guy who I actually met, Joel Weldon. I met him because he walks his dogs behind where my parents were living in Arizona for the summer. And we ended up just speaking to him because my baby loved dogs. And so we'd go there and he'd play with all the dogs on the golf course. And Joel was there and we got to speaking, found out what each other did, hit it off. He's a Hall of Fame speaker and speaker coach, like world renowned. And he has these tomato soup cans that is his business card that say success comes in cans, not in cannots. And he has over 500,000 of these in 30 years that are out in the world, sitting on people's desks. And I've got one on my desk. Yeah. That's basically all the marketing he's ever done, other than speaking a ton.
When you sent the email, I forwarded it to Adam and said, we need to get some shaker stuff. We had 1,500 come into my house the other day. We've got 33 boxes in my loft.
Oh, you're doing all those yourself? Yeah, that's going to be a nightmare. No, I don't do any of that fulfillment stuff myself, that's for sure. We've done it on some small scale. We've done a few hundred at a time, but flipping out thousands of stuff, that's going to be a beast for you. Have fun.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, but we'll stay on afterwards, and I'll talk to you guys about how you're going to ship them out. Because as with anything else, it's the details that matter.
Sure.
Thank you.
It's the touch points of how you send this stuff out that matters. You can send somebody a shaker cup, and it'll be kind of an irrelevant gift, or you can send somebody a shaker cup and it'll be a remarkable gift. And it has very little to do with the shaker cup. It has to do with how you dress up the actual package. There's ways to get a very clear-cut, disproportionate return for the time and money invested in sending out stuff like that. So we'll talk about it afterwards if you guys want.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Seeing as we're on this whole route now of sort of online businesses, what do you think are the most important facets for online businesses nowadays?
I think there's really two. I think one is you've got to get real things in real people's hands.
Yep.
I think the day and age of selling a $47 ebook is gone. You look at the trend. I mean, there was a lot of scary trends that are becoming very clear cut, where organic reach on any social media network is basically kaput. You know, Instagram is still pretty good now, but give it 5 months, it'll be gone. And I mean, not gone, but just there's not much space. I mean, it's a pure supply and demand problem. There's not much space. The Instagram posts are big. You've got to fit in advertisements, and there's tons of people on there putting out a ton of content. So what's going to happen? You're not going to see as much. Obviously, that happened with Facebook as well. Paid advertising costs are skyrocketing. I mean, cost per 1,000 impressions, cost per click has gone up 3 times since January in the last 3 months, and it's on an exponential curve. 10 or 15 months, it's going to be up 10 times from where it was in January. So acquiring a customer is going to be unbelievably expensive to the point where you basically can't afford it unless you've got a really robust back end. Yeah. So somebody with a smaller budget who's not like an actual marketer or has a massive budget is just going to be kicked out of the marketplace. If you don't have a good business that people actually want to seek out and find you. And email deliverability rates are going down really fast too, with spam filters getting more robust, with more and more email, with people paying less attention to email, or people having multiple email accounts. And if they sign up for your thing, they're going to sign up with their crappy email account because they don't actually care about it. They just want a free ebook or whatever, because you've convinced them to get that. So I guess what I'm saying with all of this is if you build a business, I truly believe this, if you build a business where you rely on a notification to alert a customer about anything, you've already lost. Like, you need to build a business where people know that if they want this type of thing, that you're the best person to go to, so that when they want that, they go to you. And this is where I think a lot of people doing business are going to fall off in the next year or two, because if it gets to the point where somebody responds to your ad, like 95% of consumers are not going to respond to ads because they've already been following somebody. They've already been trusting somebody. And when they decide to buy, they're just going to go straight there. They're not going to respond to an ad.
Yeah.
And that's already happening. So I think that's very important with online business. Figure out a way to get much stronger relationships with people, get real things in people's hands, elicit as much offline word of mouth as possible. I mean, 94% of word of mouth still happens offline. You just can't measure it. So you're measuring the 7%, which means you're fighting in bloody waters, based off the Blue Ocean analogy, if anybody's read that book. So that's one. And then the second is just abundance. I think the most valuable position to be in on the planet is to become an expert amongst experts. I think the best thing that you could ever do in order to cement your position is to support people who you quote unquote compete with and help bring them up. It is such a confident, such a powerful position. And a funny thing happens when you bring up other people who are doing great work. Number one, it's the right thing to do. But even from a business standpoint, like, everybody else is going to be operating with scarcity. There's a lot of lip service to abundance, but very few people actually go to the way to do it. Most people, even if they say that they operate with abundance, operate with mostly scarcity. And so if you actually build something where people like you can come and thrive, can come and gain from being a part of that thing, well, what happens is you bring them up and then you go up even higher. I mean, that's just, we know this. That's just a pattern. So I think those two things put together, Adam, are the best places to be. I think that's where you should invest your time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you said that, because we've never actually done any paid ads so far, and we've always just thought, because it's the rates are dwindling and the costs are going up, it's just not a reliable way to build a business, and especially in the years coming.
Well, this is a much deeper conversation.
Yeah.
I think with some of my work, some of the messages that I've put out, there's a bit of misconception that, and I that's my fault, just because of how I've written about it. I look at paid advertising as a way to throw gasoline on fire. I don't look at it as the fire. And I think that's the difference. We're going to be spending $75,000, $100,000 on paid advertising the next month. Like, it's absolutely valuable. But you got to have all the other stuff. You've got to have an unbelievable product. You've got to have a system that amplifies your paid advertising. So, yeah, we're going to do lead acquisition with paid advertising. But we're also going to take our existing audience and our existing customers and create lookalike audiences of them. So we have a better chance of finding people who actually buy, not just people who say that they're interested. And then once people opt in, we've got a lot of systems on the back end to get them to share, to get them to talk about us on the back end. So that, yeah, if we're able to convert one person at, let's say, $7, well, if 1 out of every 3 person then shares our message out, well, now our lead cost has gone down from $7 to 4 or 3, depending on how you measure it. The math can get pretty complicated, but you've got to be able to amplify it, and then you've got to be able to convert on the back end. And then you've got to be able to retain that customer for a long time and increase your long-term customer value, which means you've got to have a really amazing customer service system. You've got to have a really, really great system of continuing to communicate with these people, taking care of them, and other things to sell them. If you don't have that stuff in place, I think that stuff comes first before you start feeding a ton of money into paid ads. Now, I mean, for your everyday trainer who works locally, yeah, pump $100 a month or £100 a month into ads locally. Because if you get one client out of it, you're positive.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're talking sort of on a bigger scale, online marketing stuff.
So one of the points you just mentioned there, one of the many, was having a great product. Talk to us about the FMM.
Which is very important, is it not?
Very, very important.
If you don't have something good, if you are not good, your effort should probably be on getting good. Then they should be on trying to get people to pay attention to you before you are good. You only have one chance to make a first impression on somebody. If you make a bad first impression on that person, it is completely irrelevant what you do in the future. Mm-hmm. That's called the negative halo effect. We've known this in psychology for many years. So you who have been a trainer for 6 months' time, who starts posting on Instagram, you should probably be spending your time getting really, really good. Mm-hmm. Pounding the pavement.
This is something that Akash and I said that we've noticed sort of a trend in that especially in the online training market, is that you've got a lot of online trainers that seem to be really, really, really good at the business side of it, but they can't get results with clients.
Yeah, I mean, it's
their bread and butter they haven't nailed that yet.
Right, which is funny because there's a lot of ways that we can go there. I mean, if you're fantastic at business and not great at training, great, find somebody who's amazing at training and bad at business and partner with them. That's great. If you can acquire customers, if you can acquire clients, you don't need to be the one training them. But maybe you could be, maybe you couldn't. There's a lot of trainers out there who are exceptional coaches who can get amazing results, who cannot market for the life of themselves.
Yeah.
So anyway, what'd you say? Tell you about FMM? FMM is Fitness Marketing Monthly.
What drove you to create?
Newsletter service we put out.
Do you want to go any more in depth on that? Who would benefit from it? Where can they find out about it?
You can find out about it at ptdc.com/FMM. I'm sure you guys will put a link in the comments here. Mm-hmm. It's an analog newsletter. We decided to make it analog and not digital because I feel like information is abundant and consumption is rare. I think the reason why people don't take action on a lot of marketing advice is not because the marketing advice isn't out there. It's because there's no finality to it. This idea of you always feel like you need to know one more thing, I think stops people. There's always a related article. There's always a related podcast. There's always, the internet is infinite. You know, it's created this problem of infiniteness whereby we're never satisfied that we know enough that we give ourselves permission to take action on a thing. And so we produce a world-class newsletter. It's absolutely world-class information. I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. It's not, nothing in it is not information that you can't get anywhere else. Occasionally we'll publish like super insider stuff, but that's pretty rare. The reality of it is, the value of it is that here's this thing that we're actually going to send to you where, number one, every single word has been meticulously considered. Like we don't waste a word. There's no long winding narratives. It's got, I mean, our two editors are arguably the two best fitness editors on the planet, and that's not hyperbole. And like both of them have won multiple awards and things like that. And we send you this thing each month. Your job then is to flip through it and read it. And it'll take you a couple hours. And when you're finished, when you close the book, there's finality and you have permission to take action. Mm-hmm. And I tell you in the intro materials how to use a 2 highlighter system. So that there's your highlighter, there's your system of what you take action on now and what you highlight for later.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's important. And so, you know, it was funny when we put it out. We're actually just putting out a second issue to print today. I'm doing my final proof of it right after we talk. And you know, we sold this thing. It's obviously a difficult project to get together. If we didn't have 1,000 subscribers, it wouldn't have been financially viable to do. Like if I didn't get 1,000 subscribers before we launched the first issue, then we would have shut it down and refunded everybody. And fortunately, we blasted past that. But it's like anything else you put into the marketplace that's new. I had no idea how people were going to respond. Mm-hmm. I felt like there was this kind of need, this frustration bubbling underneath the surface where you have a lot of fitness pros and really fitness and health professionals. It's not just trainers who really do want to get better at marketing, really do want to know this stuff, but just feel like they're being yelled at from everywhere and just need one curated source in their hands delivered to them each day. You know, they don't need another email. They don't need another ebook. You don't need another damn Facebook group. You need one thing from one person you trust delivered to you once a month that you read through and you're like, okay, this is what I got to do. Mm-hmm. And that's what we provide. And it seems like I read the market right based off of the response. We're going into our second month with more subscribers than the first, which is always, you know, the sign that you want. There's always going to be some drop off, but we had way more people join than people dropped off after the first issue. And
I mean, I read it earlier this week, and the article that I particularly enjoyed was the headlines one.
Right. So that's a very unique example. Yeah, that's a very unique example of a piece that you actually can't find anywhere else. That article was put together by Adam Campbell, who's our chief strategist. For anybody who doesn't know Adam headed up, was the chief content officer for all of Rodale Properties, which means that he was in charge of men's health, women's health, bicycling, Runner's World, all of the direct-to-consumer DVDs, all of their like menshealth.com, all of their websites. He was in charge of all of that. So he was in charge of a team of about 500 editors. You know, they magazine distribution, I think they had 11 million, he told me, magazine distribution just with Men's Health alone. And then, I mean, you can imagine how many millions and millions and millions of dollars of sales of fitness materials that they sold. I mean, everything from exercise equipment to workouts to whatever. And their company, like any large company like this, did a lot of data. And so this guy actually had insight that basically nobody else on the planet has. And keep in mind, Adam has done like huge contracts also with Beachbody, which is like P90X, all those, and Spartan, and like name a huge fitness company. He's basically seen behind the curtain of it. And so what he was able to do is he was able to say, hey, look, here's the headlines, here's the sales copy that actually works, and here's what doesn't. And here are the lessons, here are the laws that you need to follow for this stuff that converts. that's a pretty unique, like I said, most stuff in there you could probably find somewhere else. That's something that you couldn't. I've probably read 40 books on sales, copy, and advertising. And that one piece plus the top secret swipe stuff where it was all the examples.
Yeah.
That was probably better than any of the books that I've ever read on advertising and sales copy. I mean, it's like, that blew my mind when I first saw it.
Wow.
Akash, do you want to comment as well, Akash, on straight away when you first received it, you commented to me on just the quality and everything of it.
Yeah, I said, I think it came in like a hard plastic wallet. And then before that, you got the bonus materials in an envelope. And I said to Adam, like, the way it's been presented is exceptional. I mean, even the
a shiny blue envelope. So I was going to talk to you guys about the bottles, right?
Yeah.
You can send that stuff in a crappy brown paper envelope and nobody gets excited. But if you're waiting for something, if you're looking forward to something and a shiny blue envelope shows up, think about all of the feel-good hormones triggered in your brain before you even open it. Think about what head start, what advantage that gives you when somebody opens that thing. They're already feeling so good. They're already so excited. Mm-hmm. How much difference that makes. I mean, that envelope costs like an extra 25 cents per unit than like a regular white or brown, bubble wrap thing. It's nothing.
Worth it. Yeah.
Makes the difference.
Yeah.
Interesting. Akash, anything you want to add to that part there?
No, that's it. We can move on. Yeah.
You good with that?
Yeah.
Let's change subjects slightly. Let's change gears. So rather than just keep it always, serious and stuff, we've mentioned that you like the travel and whatnot. Where's Calvin's next adventure?
Well, Calvin, every day's an adventure for Calvin. Calvin's my son, for people listening. So he's 14 months, turning 15 months. Calvin started to walk very early. His mom was a champion gymnast, which is where we think it comes from.
Oh, wow.
And champion gymnast and also national champion cheerleader as well up in university. And so we think that's where he gets it from. He learned to walk at like 10 months. So he's now at the point where he's really steady. He can climb up anything and everything. He's got the guts that you would expect a gymnast to have. He just like climbs up and balances on stuff, but he doesn't have that mental acuteness yet of knowing what he can and cannot do. He's pretty good at knowing when he, like what he can step off of and what he can't, but it doesn't mean he doesn't slip. Mm-hmm. So that's why I say every day is an adventure, because he's just so good at climbing and moving. He's not moving super fast yet, but fast enough.
Yeah.
So, and I can't, to be honest, I cannot imagine what it would be like if my wife, Allison, and I were not fit.
Right.
We get sore backs. And we're both strong and active and have been working out more or less consistently since we were 15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
I was never good at sports, but I played sports my whole life. She was very good at sports. Well, she's not good with projectiles. She can't catch a ball, which is really funny. But she was a rhythmic, or she was an artistic gymnast, right? So she never learned how to catch a ball. It's the funniest thing. She was so targeted into the sport that she did that she never played catch. Which is a whole nother, like how you raise your kids. But every day is an adventure with him. And then, he was in Costa Rica with us. He was in Dominican with us all of last winter, nice. Which is super fun. He's going to be doing our whole world travels with us next year.
Oh, awesome.
What better lesson can you give to a 1.5, 2-year-old than to travel the world, see different people? I mean, he's had 2 nannies, one in Costa Rica, one in Dominican, who only spoke Spanish. He's seen tons of people who look very different, who sound very different. Mm-hmm. Even Dominican people with obviously not as good healthcare as we have in Canada. So huge sores all over their face and body and missing limbs sometimes. It's like he's seen all that stuff. So what effect that will have on him as he grows up, who knows? But he's already growing up into a pretty awesome, confident boy. And we're pretty happy with that. He's super active, and we wouldn't have it any other way, but it's freaking exhausting.
I can imagine.
Oh, man.
Awesome.
It is exhausting, dude. Sometimes I went to bed at 8:15 2 nights ago.
Really? Wow.
Yep. And I high-fived my wife on the way in. Like, we did it. Yes.
I like that. John, let's finish on a couple of rapid fire questions. So, first one, what's your favorite place that you have traveled to?
Ooh, that is a hard question to answer. I fell in love with Maui, for sure. Maui was a very special place for me for a lot of reasons. Probably, though, I would say Kauai I liked more. Maui was just more special because of the time of life. But the island of Kauai, I mean, we spent a month on the North Shore there. I like quiet. Mm-hmm. I like solitude. I like being by myself a lot. And so the north of Kauai is still relatively undiscovered, pretty wild. And it's
you spell that? Kauai, you say?
Kauai, Kauai. It's an island in Hawaii.
Okay.
That's unbelievable. North of Scotland is always going to hold a special place in my heart. We got engaged. I did a day seminar in Edinburgh, and then we did a road trip up north of Scotland. We stayed in a couple castles, but basically went up to Inverness and then came back down and did another day talk in Bath. And I got engaged to Alison at the Killeen Castle in Scotland on her 30th birthday. So that'll always be really special.
Cool. How did you guys meet?
Places that stand out.
How did you guys meet out of interest?
I hit on her in the gym in the summer after first year university because she was wearing a cheerleader shirt, and I like cheerleaders. And she shut me down really quick. And then fourth year university, she got a job as a trainer at the university gym that I've been working at for a couple of years. And we reconnected then and kind of made the connection that we had met previously and had a laugh about it. And then about 5 years later, I convinced her to date me.
So it's a long game.
Well, she had been dating somebody. She dated somebody basically 16 to 25. She dated somebody for about 10 years. Okay. So when you meet somebody in university, in fourth year university, that's been with somebody for 7 years, I mean, it's just not even a thought, right? Yeah. Not 7 years, 4 or 5 years. It's just not even a thought. They're just a friend. They're just somebody. So we had periods where we were closer and not close. She ended up the longer story is she did sort of a Doctors Without Borders type thing in India, some volunteer stuff. She's a naturopathic doctor. And when she came back, she was still in school and she was looking for a job part-time as a trainer, and I got her a job at the gym that I was working at because it was right around her house. And that's when we started spending more time together. It was after university, about a year and a half after university. We started spending more time together, and when she and this other guy split, his name was also John, we started hanging out basically every day, and she had never kissed another guy other than this guy before me, It took some time. She wanted to kind of explore. She didn't want to jump into another relationship. So it was about 6-7 years to convince her to date me. It was a hustle.
Played the long game.
It was a hustle. It was a hustle.
So if you could pick one place to live, where would it be?
Toronto, Canada. I love it here. It's where I am right now. It's where I live in the summers. It's where I'm born and raised. I think Toronto's the best city in the world. You've got, it's funny because I've lived in a lot of places that don't have seasons. For example, where we live in Costa Rica and Nosara, the sun sets from 6 to 6:30 every single day over the entire year. Yeah. They basically have summer and then hotter summer and then rainy summer.
Right.
And it's nice to have seasons in Toronto. I actually kind of miss it when I spend eternal summers, which is what I've done the last number of years. But also just Toronto, it's just beautiful. It's multicultural. It's got people are so accepting of each other in every way, and you don't even think about it like that. It's modern. It's not cheap, but I think for the most part, and taxes here in Canada are about as expensive as they are anywhere. We pay way more taxes in the States and stuff like that, for example. But the result is that we have social programs and things that, I don't take part of, but I'm just so happy that they exist.
Yeah.
So, I think Toronto's the best city in the world, and I'm biased, but I've been and lived in a lot of other places.
Awesome. Last question. Who should we have on our podcast next?
What kind of stuff do you want to cover?
Anything. We try not to. Our podcast is pretty varied. There's always obviously it interlinks with fitness somehow. But we've had people talk about psychology. We've had gut health. We've had typical trainers. We've got yourself talking slightly more business. We're really open-minded.
Do you know somebody named Joey Persia?
Yes.
Oh yeah, we met him in San Diego, didn't we?
Yeah.
He strikes me as somebody who would be interesting for you guys to have on. I mean, I like the guy a lot. He's now a copywriter.
Yeah.
Fitness copywriter, but his story is just really neat. You know, he was a trainer who really paid his dues. Slept on the floor in the gym for like months. Just kind of, and I think it'd be really neat to get that part out of him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what did you do to get to where you are? And I think a lot of people hear that and they'll be like, okay, like this is a pretty legit guy. And also here's some of the stuff that you don't hear about a lot of the time. You know, when I was a manager at the gym, when I was training staff, one of the first things I did was I taught them how to make a bed in the staff room out of mats and towels.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about that.
No, they don't.
That's the thing.
Interesting. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, Joey would be cool actually. We, as Akash said, we met him in San Diego, so that'd be a good one actually.
Yeah, he's rad. I like the guy a lot.
Awesome. John, Akash, have you got anything you just want to add there?
No. Just a big thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate your time. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. It's loads of information. Really good.
And if the listeners here have enjoyed today's episode with John, please give it a share and leave a review, please. For more information, please visit www.rntfitness.co.uk for our blogs, and on Instagram we're at Akash Vagela, at Adam Haley1, and at RNT_fitness. And just a quick one, we forgot to ask John, where can people find you? www.theptdc.com. Don't look up like just PTDC without the in front of it. You're going to find the Pakistani Tourism Development Center. Don't look up that hashtag. You're going to see some stuff that's not really representative of my values. And but make sure to put the in front of it.
Perfect. Thank you.
We'll put those in the show notes.